and we support this bill. And honestly, Mr. Speaker, I've learnt a lot this evening, because I have, as the member for Ballina, I have had many of my constituents come to me over the last 9 years with absolute horror stories of what has happened to them and the treatment of some unscrupulous operators, vulnerable people. And I just want to thank them. I'm not going to name them. I'm not judging anyone else who is, because unfortunately the fear of retribution from those operators is so high that I want to protect them, quite frankly. Even to the point where I was sent anonymously recently, where one of the operators has defamed me quite significantly, and distributed it to hundreds of residents, and I'm just stewing on that. So if they're watching, I am stewing on that. But it's not about me, and it's certainly not about a contest of what has been done or not done. But I will say that I've watched a glacial pace in terms of being the 8 years of the coalition on this issue. And I did make a submission to the review in 2021. And I think, in my view, I know that my residents, my constituents, are very happy indeed to see this legislation before us. And I commend Labor for getting on with this immediately, and that's why, even though for us, so many of the recommendations have not been implemented yet, I am persuaded by the Minister that is coming, that there is a second tranche, and we will certainly be monitoring that. But we also didn't want to do anything that would delay the implementation of this immediately. Mr. Speaker, there are 29 residential land lease communities in the Ballina electorate. That's a lot. And an estimated population of 750 people in my electorate who reside in these villages and are affected by the operation of this Act. Since I was elected in 2015, I've met with dozens of constituents who tell me that what should be a period of joy and peace for them in retirement, and who have invested their superannuation in dream locations in my electorate with like-minded people, has instead become a time of financial stress and anxiety due to the behaviour of some of the people and organisations that manage residential land lease communities. And it was very interesting to me to hear from the member for Gosford and others that how insipid this is, and the capture by former ministers and governments in terms of setting up this a system that has so failed vulnerable people. I want to thank everyone who has come and spoken to me, and there is in particular a champion in Lennox, she knows who she is, who has taken on so many cases and supported so many residents going to NCAT at huge personal expense, at huge personal stress, and the idea that each resident that's what they've had to do every single time. So not only are they intimidated by the operator, not only are they frightened to raise any issues because they may face recrimination, but they then have had in the past to take each matter to the tribunal off their own bat. And then let's just add into that for my community that a number of these residential land lease communities were severely flood impacted. We saw, and I really want to give a shout out to Craig Copeland, because he was an extraordinary citizen who, off his own back, went in to really look after some of the residents from Cedars in particular. But I really did see an absence of leadership from operators, not all, but I tell you what, you add to this mix a flood, severe flood, on West Ballina, and it's been horrendous for people, because, as others would know, in our area, the rental the availability of rental properties, but the cost of them for a regional area are astronomical. And so once people have been dispossessed or displaced from these communities, it is very grim indeed. Mr. Speaker, residents, one of the things that we raised was the unreasonable and unjustifiable site fee increases, and that residents were not protected by the legislation as it stood. So we are very glad to see that in this legislation that it sets out not only particular rights and obligations of operators, but that it, in terms of including the making of site fee increases, that it is simpler and more certain for them. I also want to give a shout out to the Tenants Union who gave, and also our spokesperson, Kate Fairman, MLC, in the other place. We had a detailed briefing with them just to understand, quite frankly, we said, would you want us to push harder? And they said, we're all sort of basically satisfied that at this stage, this is so important, the changes that it makes, that we want to see it happen as quickly as possible. Mr. Speaker, one of the big issues was a lack of transparency. We know that operators the fact that they don't have to share the financial state of their affairs in terms of the managing of these sites, the fact that you don't, as a resident, you don't have any oversight on the justification of what's being done with the finances, and so any transparency, any changes that will improve transparency are very welcome. Mr. Speaker, as we've heard, this bill implements 21 of the 48 recommendations, and we, as I say, we will continue to watch. I thank the Tenants Union, I thank the residents in my community, and also we've spoken with Douglas McCloskey from PIAC, and who has said that their concern was the energy charging measures, and we've heard about the changes to the embedded networks. I mean, I had to go into bat recently for a couple of tenants who just wanted to have solar, and you would think they were asking for the moon. So the electricity is, it's absurd to think that people are being charged, people who are so vulnerable and they don't have wriggle room. I mean, these are people who are on pensions, and other people on disability pension, or even if they're self-funded retirees. There is no buffer zone for so many of our people living in these communities. So what happens to them, as I'm also hearing from retirement villages, is homelessness. And these were designed, their original genesis was designed as, guess what? Affordable housing. Mr. Speaker, we can't keep changing the goalposts. I know that I would argue that there are a minority of unscrupulous operators, and we've heard about some of them today. And can I say to those operators, can I first of all say to the residents in all of my communities that we believe you and hear you, and not giving up on this issue, and well done to you for all of your advocacy. And I say to those minorities and scrupulous operators that your days are actually numbered, because once we finish this process, we will hopefully be attracting more of those of genuine community members who understand that the custodianship that they have of the people that live in these communities. We commend the bill.
Yeah,